Hey guys, welcome again to my channel. This is Cherry, and for today's video we'll be dissecting again. So we will dissect an earthworm. So earthworms are actually soft-bodied segmented worms, and they are under phylum Annelida and class Oligocada.
There are approximately 2,700 different kinds of earthworms. Worms live where there is food, moisture, oxygen, and a favorable temperature. And if they don't have these things, they go somewhere else. In 1 acre of land, there can be more than 1 million of earthworms. The largest earthworm ever found was in South Africa, and it is measured 22 feet from its nose to the tip of its tail.
Before we start our earthworm dissection, let's make sure that we are ready, and that means that we wear our laboratory gown, our gloves, and also our mask.
Let's go with the external parts of our earthworm. The dorsal side of an earthworm is the top of the earthworm running from the anterior to the posterior. For the ventral side of an earthworm, the underside of the earthworm is actually running from the anterior to the posterior, and you can locate the ventral section by feeling for the setae. This is the head or front of the earthworm, and it is called its anterior. The first segment on the earthworm's anterior holds the prostomium and the mouth. So the prostomium resembling to a lip in its front of the mouth. This is the skin. So the earthworms breathe and lose moisture through the skin. So light-sensitive cells are scattered in their skin. They give skin the ability to detect light and changes in light intensity. So skin cells are also sensitive to touch and chemicals. This is called the segments. So the body is divided into segments, and these segments resemble rings. Large earthworms are actually made up of hundreds of segments. This is the setae. So each segment has a number of bristly hairs that earthworms use to help them move. Sometimes if you run your fingers on the underside or in the ventral side of the earthworm, you can feel the setae. This is the clitellum, this glandular ring or saddle. So after mating, the clitellum secretes a cocoon of eggs. Let's go for its anus. So this is the anus of an earthworm. So it is located at the posterior or last segment of the earthworm's body. Actually, the anus excretes waste, or it is called worm cast. Let us now go in the internal parts of the earthworm. So we will be needing some pins for us to pin the top and the end of the earthworm's body. We are now going to cut the earthworm so that we would see its internal parts. So you need to be careful in doing this so that you won't damage the internal organs of the earthworm. Okay, so just cut it lightly. This is the pharynx. So earthworms push the pharynx out of their mouths to grasp hold of organic matter, and then they will pull the food back into their mouths and then wet it with saliva. Now we go with the aortic arches. So most earthworm species have 5 aortic arches or hearts that move blood around the body. So the number of aortic arches varies among species. Next, we have the esophagus. So this is the esophagus of the earthworm, and it carries food between the pharynx and the crop. Below the esophagus is where we can find the seminal vesicles. So here is the seminal vesicles of our earthworm. And these seminal vesicles store sperm that is being produced by the earthworm. Next, let's go down here with the intestine. So this is the intestine, and once the food is ground up, it moves into the intestine where digestive fluids continue to break down the food so it can be absorbed. In our dissection, we noticed that the worm has no arms, legs, or eyes. But even though worms do not have eyes, they can sense light, especially at their anterior, which is the front end. So they move away from light and will become paralyzed if exposed to light for too long, and that is approximately 1 hour. And if a worm's skin dries out, it will die. These worms tunnel deeply in the soil and bring subsoil closer to the surface, mixing it with the topsoil. So the slime secretion of earthworms contains nitrogen. This nitrogen is an important nutrient for plants. So the sticky slime helps to hold cluster of soils particles in a formation called aggregates. So worms are cold-blooded animals. Earthworms also have the ability to replace or replicate their lost segments.
And that is our earthworm dissection for today. So I actually have a hard time in dissecting my worm since I have a small worm, and the harder I could locate its internal parts. However, I truly enjoy this thing, and I hope you to enjoy it, and I hope you learn something too. Thank you so much for listening.